The subject of supply is one of the most fascinating subjects for study and experiment and experience in the message of the infinite way. The reason is that you cannot approach the subject of supply in the sense of believing that we need money or automobiles or houses or homes, because that would be the old metaphysical attempt to demonstrate effects. And this must always be a failure, because you might sometimes demonstrate effects and then be very sorry for it later. You see, you start your whole infinite way experience from the standpoint of the truth that we are offspring of God. That is, that we are spiritual and heirs of God, joint heirs to all the heavenly riches. And then, if we've been metaphysically trained, we turn right around and try to turn heavenly riches into houses and automobiles and dollars. And of course, we lose the whole contact there. When Scripture says, "Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things," it doesn't add that thy grace gives me dollars and automobiles and houses. It says that thy grace is my sufficiency. And as spiritual beings, we have to be satisfied with that statement that all we are seeking is thy grace. Now, grace always interprets itself at the level of the moment in which we are living, so that as we realize the sufficiency of thy grace, it will appear to us as air to breathe or transportation or dollars or whatever our life at the moment may require. And it can very well appear in forms that we could not possibly expect. Our idea of what constitutes supply may differ entirely with God's idea for us at this moment. Our idea of where we would like to live or what work we would like to do may differ entirely from God's. And here you must remember something. If you remember that you are spiritual and the offspring of God, you must remember that you are a child in a far different way than children of earth are children of their parents. God is omniscient. And when God has a child, it is for a specific purpose. There is something definite in mind with every individual offspring, something that they were actually sent into expression to do. As humans, we have completely missed the mark, because most of the activities of humans were not intended for us. And in our ignorance, we went into business or something else. So it is that when you say that thy grace is my sufficiency in all things, you have to turn within with an open mind and stand on that word grace and let it assume the form necessary. And if it shocks you out of your skin, you have to be willing to be shocked. And if it makes you leave mother, brother, father, and sister, you leave mother, brother, father, and sister. And if it makes you leave your holy lands to go over to Europe to proselyte, you leave your holy lands and go to Europe or Asia and proselyte. Now, when you see supply in this light, you see it as grace, and you see it as a gift of God, and you have no outline of what the form is. You can very well be more surprised than a child going to the Christmas tree on Christmas morning and finding the things it doesn't expect. What it receives is its parents' sense of love. They're giving it something, not necessarily that the child wants, but what the parent feels is for its good. This is much more true as we go to the Father for divine grace. It is utterly hopeless to have an idea of what gifts we would like, what form the grace should assume, what form the supply should be. Because omniscience knows all, and it knows all about every individual, because omniscience is the allness of every individual, and therefore omniscience operates within us to reveal its plan for us. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. It is along the same line as prayer is understood in the infinite way. Prayer is only effective in the measure that we go to God without a desire. Because otherwise, we are holding a mold up to God and say, fill it for us. Here's the mold of my wish, of my desire. Become my servant and do what I would like, and so forth. You see, the infinite way has no such form of prayer. The prayer is an opening of consciousness to the presence and the activity of God. Now, the fruitage of this kind of prayer and the fruitage of seeking supply in this way as grace is that sooner or later the revelation is given to you within yourself. Do not look to me, because son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is already thine. It was incorporated in you in the beginning before Abraham was. When, in our oneness with God in the beginning, he incorporated into us his life, his mind, his soul, his spirit, his substance, his supply, his infinity. And he can add nothing to us now. Nor are there any powers on earth to take from us, as long as we live in the realization that our infinity, our grace and our gift, is ours by virtue of our relationship to God, the oneness that was established with him in the beginning. Then when this is revealed to us, we perceive why the poet could say, you must open out a way for the imprisoned splendor to escape. Since infinity is the measure of my supply, and it cannot be added to, I must start pouring. I must start the outflow. And so it is that in every department of our lives, we must constantly search, while we're on the subject of supply, not to see how we can get or what we can get, but in what way we are not pouring. Because this is where the damming up of supply comes in our not pouring in some manner.